Today's video brought to you by Crazy Pokemon Trivia. So I was looking up the move Burn Up since Typhlosion is one of my favorite Pokemon. I was looking to see how to incorporate it into future movesets when something caught my eye. If the user is a pure fire type Pokemon, it will become typeless. This kind of blows my mind as someone that has been a fan of Pokemon since it has come out, that the familiarization with the question mark, otherwise known as Typeless Typing, has done a lot of really strange things in the past, and anyone that has actually played since the early days of Pokemon might have also felt that this is very strange. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be looking into all of the implications of Burn Up, Roost with a pure flying type Pokemon, and then also checking out how this typelessness works in all kinds of other aspects. But yeah, what happens here is that Burn Up is a very unique move that isn't getting a lot of attention since so few Pokemon actually get access to it. But what it does is, if used by a fire type Pokemon, Burn Up will inflict damage and then cause the user to lose its fire typing. And that's why it's so strange that this isn't some kind of oversight by Gamefreak, because 5 of these 6 Pokemon that learn Burn Up are a pure fire type Pokemon. So this is something very interesting that they would intentionally force a typeless typing in such a niche move in Pokemon. Now the thing is, you can actually switch out the Pokemon to restore its fire typing and then use Burn Up again. There's all kinds of really crazy stuff that goes on with this. So here we are at the battle tree because I want to test something that we learned from Fan Fridays this week. So it was with the Mega Alakazam that became a Dancer Pokemon. Also, you're going to notice my team isn't really competitive at all. I just want to see what happens, because what we learned is that whenever a Pokemon copies Revelation Dance or gains Revelation Dance in some way, Revelation Dance becomes the typing of the user that is using it. Now, I didn't realize this when I was doing the video, but it is something interesting that happens. So I'm trying to think about how we're doing this. We're going to Carbink, skill swap the Oricorio, and then skill swap it back into the Typhlosion, and then we just have a random Pokemon because it only takes 3 for this combo. So the idea is that we'll have Typhlosion with the Dancer ability, Oricorio goes and uses Revelation Dance, and then that causes Typhlosion to use a typeless Revelation Dance after Burn Up. That's a thing that you can do. You can create a typeless offensive move now in Pokemon. Okay, so the battle tree was too mean to me and I wasn't able to do it. So right now I have a friend that is helping me out. So it just has like level 1 Breejex and we can go and get this setup going right now. So Carbink just used Skill Swap on the Typhlosion after using Skill Swap on the Oricorio. I'm trying not to repeat myself too much, so I'm skipping ahead just a little. So that means we can then switch out right there, and now Typhlosion can go and use the Burn Up, sacrificing its fire typing to have all kinds of things happen right there. Now, I do know that there is a Bulbapedia article that kind of already talks about this, and I realized this after I already made the team and after I went for all the setup. But I do want to show the hands-on, and then we can go and discuss the mechanics of this a little later. So Typhlosion just used Burn Up, and one interesting thing, it says Typhlosion burns itself out. So that's just kind of showing that, yeah, Typhlosion no longer fire typing anymore. However, this actually doesn't show up in any of the stat screens or anything like that, even though all of the other changes to Typhlosion do show up. So what we can do is we can click on the bottom screen, and it says Typhlosion has the Dancer ability from the skill swap, but nothing about the Burn Up, no burned up status or anything like that. And even if we go to our Pokemon stat page and then click on Typhlosion, we can see that there's no question mark typing. It still says fire typing, even though if we attempt to use Burn Up, it will fail. So let's go and have Oricorio right now use the Revelation Dance onto the Feebas, and then we'll just have Typhlosion use the Burn Up again, just kind of show that everything was successful, and then the weirdness is going to happen. So Typhlosion will fail the Burn Up, and then Oricorio gets to use the Revelation Dance. That's going to go and hit the Feebas, and then that means Typhlosion, with its Dancer ability, will also get to copy it. Now that's actually kind of neat, Typhlosion using the Revelation Dance, but this is actually purely typeless right here, and as we can see, Feebas just faints, no resisted hit, even though Typhlosion was a fire-type Pokemon to begin with. And now it's time to go and explore more about the Typeless Typing, which is kind of weird to talk about. So let's go back to that Bulbapedia page that I showed and go a bit more in-depth into it, because it actually gets very specific about what we just witnessed. If a Pokemon has lost its primary fire type due to Burn Up, Revelation Dance will match its current type, which would be its secondary type if it has any, or any type added by Force, Curse, or Trick or Treat if it has, or else it has no type. So that's pretty much it. You can figure it out by going onto the page instead of trying to build a team and then fail at the battle tree many times and have to get your friend to help you out. But overall, it shows that we have a no typing offensive move, so that's where the typeless question mark type comes into play. And this is also where we get into even more kinds of crazy trivia. Also, another thing I wanted to bring up was conversion, because conversion talks about Revelation Dance as well, or at least conversion 2. Conversion 2 will fail if the last move the target used was struggle or a typeless revelation dance. Therefore, the typeless revelation dance does exist, or if there is no type that resists the move, such as a normal type in an inverse battle. So there's actually a really deep understanding of the typeless typing because of just the existence of burn up and the potential for Revelation Dance to go and copy a typeless typed Pokemon or something like that. And then another one that's really interesting to bring up is going to be the struggle. So struggle counts as a normal move. However, it effectively acts as a typeless move because struggle is now unaffected by types, including normal damage to steel, rock, and ghost types, and being unaffected by stab. So I think that that's also kind of the interesting thing, because struggle works like a typeless move, but still counts as typeless for the effect of a conversion 2, because the game doesn't know what to do when trying to become stronger against something that is typeless. And then, like, just the breakdown for typeless is kind of funny. Yep. There's your battle properties, guys, and that's it. Like, there's nothing offensive to it, there's nothing defensive to it, and that's kind of interesting for the Revelation Dance, because it can't be immune by anything. Has no chance to become super effective, but it also has no chance to be resisted. It just does the damage. However, even if it's used by a typeless Pokemon to become typeless, there's no such thing as a same type attack boost for the typeless typing. So it's just a straightforward move that is neutral against everything. And we can also see that in the past, this is why things were fairly interesting when we see that Gamefreak is acknowledging typeless typing and then just immediately allowing it to happen. The move Curse was giving the question mark type introduced in Generation 2, likely because of its mysterious nature. However, it was retyped as a ghost type move in Generation 5, so that means there's no more question mark type moves. Also, Pokemon Eggs were listed as a question mark type in Generation 3. Weather Ball changes type depending on the weather condition. If it's used on the field under the effect of Shadow Sky, Weather Ball changes to a typeless move and will neither be super effective or not very effective against any type. Despite this, if a Pokemon with color change is hit with a move under these conditions, it will be changed to a normal type Pokemon. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This is the only way to legitimately encounter the type effectiveness of a question mark type move. Now, the interesting thing is that there's also seemingly a difference between question mark type and typeless, even though they effectively have the same things happen. Now, I'm wondering if this is also just a typo here, because this is Bulbapedia. It's effectively a wiki article, so it can be edited, which means that in the 7th generation, a typeless revelation dance can be achieved through natural gameplay, as I just showed right there. Arceus is also a really interesting one because of how type changes work with Roost. So in Generation 4, if a pure flying type Pokemon uses Roost, it becomes typeless until the end of the turn, effectively behaving as though it were a question mark type. However, in Generation 4, all flying type Pokemon have 2 types, and we can kind of see that when we look at the flying typing. That, yeah, all the Pokemon that we know and love, it's normal flying instead of pure flying. So effectively, whenever a flying type Pokemon uses Roost, loses the flying typing from the effect of Roost, then it becomes normal. But only in the 5th generation was a pure flying type Pokemon introduced. And that's why we have to talk about this even more, because yeah, like in Generation 5 and onwards, if a pure flying type Pokemon uses Roost, it then becomes a pure normal type Pokemon until the end of the turn instead. However, Arceus holding the Sky Plate, technically with Roost, would be able to have the question mark typing, but the only way of achieving this is through hacks or extreme game modification, so that's kind of it. Also, on official material, the question mark type is also used to denote a type that has not been yet revealed, and this is what happened with Sylveon. Sylveon was listed as a triple question mark typing, even though it ended up being fairy. Now, another crazy thing about the question mark typing is that it's been effectively retired, that because of the change to Roost, there's no way of having the question mark typing happen. Therefore, the question mark typing is not present in the coding of Generation 5 games, and because Curse is no longer question mark typing and became Ghost, that's all the things. So now it's just referred to as typeless and has official acknowledgement by Gamefreak in the way that they made this very easily achievable typeless thing that also interacts with Revelation Dance. Was that enough for you guys? Because that is just some of the craziness that I stumbled into. But also, I want to look at typelessness from a competitive standpoint, because now it's possible to have a typeless Pokemon in an instant. And it seems to be very powerful that even though it doesn't have anything it resists, it also has no weaknesses as well. And through breeding, Arcanine can gain Burn Up, which means Arcanine uses Burn Up and then can become like a purely supportive Pokemon, or at least just have no stab options, because it's no longer fire type, therefore it can't do something like a Flare Blitz, but already did an insane amount of damage with the Burn Up, and it has some pretty solid bulky stats, and really, just Arcanine has some really balanced stats overall. And then what we can see right here is this is the trade-off. We lose all of our weaknesses, but we also lose double in resistances. So as a typeless Pokemon using Burn Up on the Arcanine, we're no longer weak to ground, rock, and water, and then that means we lose our resistances to bug, steel, fire, grass, ice, and fairy. So effectively everything forever becomes a neutral hit, and in double battles, Arcanine kind of just comes in for the Intimidate and the Snarl, and you switch out Arcanine, which refreshes the Burn Up. So you could switch out Arcanine, come back in, Burn Up again, and then use Snarl, which isn't really big on damage. You still have the Morning Sun for sustain, and then some kind of other coverage move or tech that's going to be supportive, and then you're just playing with an Arcanine that can't get blown up by super effective hits. Even though, like, for the most part, opponents aren't going to be throwing intentional resisted hits at a Pokemon, they're going to be seeking those super effective hits. Therefore, it's a lot better right there, and if you're switching out Arcanine to switch it into a resisted hit, then it doesn't matter because it hasn't used Burn Up at this point. So maybe Burn Up Arcanine or typeless Pokemon can actually be used fairly decently in the metagame, and that's kind of it. So that's going to be something to investigate. It's just kind of weird that Burn Up, such a niche move, so few Pokemon gain access to it, that technically Moltres can do it and then be a pure flying type Pokemon that uses Roost, but that just makes it a normal typing, so that's not as interesting. But in that we have the Typhlosion evolutionary line, which doesn't get a lot of competitive play, unfortunately, and then we have the Growlithe evolutionary line, and Arcanine actually gets quite a lot of play, but it doesn't look like there's much use of that Burn Up being integrated, even though it seems to be fairly powerful, not offensively, but defensively and strategically. As you can see, Arcanine is actually the second most used in Championship online battles, which is effectively the VGC format, and we can see right here that there is no visible usage, so maybe under less than 10% usage, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's down to 1% on something like the Burn Up, that it has all these other kinds of moves. It has the Snarl, we see Will-O-Wisp, we also see Roar and Bulldoze, so kind of bringing those supportive aspects, which really don't make too much of a difference. Like Flare Blitz, that's already a big kind of blow-up move, but so is Burn Up, so you can do big damage on the Arcanine, transition back into something that's going to be a bit more supportive, and then we can see other things happen. So there we go, guys, dealing with a lot of craziness. This video got a lot more intense than I thought it would. Like, when I realized that Revelation Dance had its own page, and then it just kind of kept snowballing into all the other things, it was pretty nuts. But I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys got to appreciate this kind of forgotten feature in Pokemon that, yeah, question mark typing used to be a big deal back in 3rd and 4th generation, and then when it was removed in the 5th generation, kind of forgotten about, but now it's just there. It's just there again. Gamefreak brought it back, and you don't have to hack the game. You don't have to do any weirdness. You just have one Pokemon use a move that it naturally learns. Wow, that's some weird stuff right there. And yeah, on Roost, it was kind of talking about this, and yeah, there we go, guys. Hope you all enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like, share it with all your friends. It's just absolutely nuts, and it took a lot of work to kind of get the research and get the battle set up just right. So thank you very much for watching.